You remember the fight clearly, the way their voice cracked when they said, "How could you do this to me?" The broken glass on the floor, the long drive home in silence, your hands gripping the wheel like it was the only thing holding your life together. You remember feeling betrayed. That's why you ended it. That's why you walked away. But then, years later, you're cleaning out an old hard drive, a digital graveyard of memories. You open a folder marked 2017. Inside, a thread of emails, ones you don't remember writing, screenshots of text messages in your voice, a journal entry in your own handwriting. "I don't know how to tell them about the affair," it reads. "They don't deserve this." Your heart stutters. You don't remember being the one who strayed, but the evidence is yours, your words, your confessions, your treason. So you ask yourself, which is real, the memory or the proof? The answer, like a trapdoor, opens beneath you. Memory is supposed to be the one thing that belongs entirely to you. More private than a bank account. More sacred than a fingerprint. It builds your past, defines your values, shapes the person you call I. But what if your memory is lying? Not just blurring the edges, not just filling in a few blanks, but manufacturing a version of the past that never happened. One where you're the victim instead of the villain. One where you're loyal, hurt, righteous, when in truth, you were the knife. This isn't fiction. It's psychology, it's biology, and it's philosophy. You see, we like to believe that memory is a filing cabinet, tidy, chronological, sealed. But it's not. It's a manuscript rewritten every time we open it, a story edited to fit the ending we want to believe. And what makes this dangerous isn't just that it happens, but that it feels real. Your mind doesn't remember the truth. It remembers the version that hurts less, that keeps you sane, that lets you sleep at night. We forget that memory's first allegiance isn't to accuracy, it's to survival. That's why you could honestly recall being wronged, while the evidence says you were the one who did the wrong. And this isn't just about relationships. It's about everything. Who would you be if your memories were rearranged? Could you still trust your beliefs, your regrets, your apologies? Could you still trust yourself? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Sometimes the version of the past you cling to, the one you'd swear on your life is real, isn't real at all. It's just the lie you loved. And if that's true, what else have you misremembered? This is where Niccolò Machiavelli steps in, not as a philosopher of memory, but as its executioner. To him, trust is a weakness, and memory is the most dangerous illusion of all. Because the past, like power, is always rewritten by those who need it most. And Machiavelli warns you, never trust a beautiful lie. Machiavelli never trusted the truth, not because he was a liar, but because he understood power. And power has no use for truth. It prefers illusion, persuasion, and the most effective fiction of all, memory. He wrote for princes, not philosophers, men who understood that control wasn't taken by force alone, but by narrative. And what is memory, if not your personal narrative? Imagine this. A prince rises to power not by lineage, not by divine right, but by crafting a story of chaos tamed, of enemies conquered, of betrayal survived. The people cheer, not because they've witnessed the events, but because they've been told a version they need to believe. A version that soothes fear, promises order, and makes the prince indispensable. That version becomes memory. And Machiavelli whispers, "It does not matter whether the story is true, only that it is believed." This isn't just politics. This is personal. Because what Machiavelli understood centuries before neuroscience confirmed it is that the human mind doesn't crave truth. It craves coherence. The past is not remembered. It is justified, sculpted, beautified, sanitized. You don't remember what happened. You remember what needed to happen to make you the hero. Look back at your own life. The falling out with the friend, the job you left, the way you describe your childhood. Are you remembering, or are you editing? Are you replaying facts or retelling myths? Machiavelli would say, does it matter? If the version you remember gives you strength, secures your image, furthers your goals, then, to him, it is useful. And use, not accuracy, is the measure of value. This is the darkest twist of Machiavellian logic. A lie, if it works, becomes reality. But here's the real danger. It's not just that others manipulate your memory. It's that you do. In small, daily choices. In the stories you repeat about yourself. In what you omit, what you embellish, what you repress. And slowly, what began as a coping mechanism becomes a belief system. Machiavelli never said, lie to yourself. He didn't need to. He simply recognized that power consolidates when people forget, or rather, when they remember selectively. Tyrants burn books, but ordinary people burn to memories. The dictator rewrites history on the national stage. You do it in the quiet theater of your own mind. Even the act of reflection, the most honest thing you can do, is suspect. Because reflection isn't looking back. It's reconstructing. You tell the story of how your first relationship shaped your trust issues, how your parents' silence taught you to be strong, how the failure made you resilient. Are these memories, or are they fictions wrapped around pain, designed to make your suffering noble? Machiavelli saw this tendency in rulers, but it applies to all of us. Every human being is a propagandist of their own past. This brings us to the paradox. If memory serves identity, but memory is malleable, then who are you really? Are you the one who was betrayed, or the betrayer who forgot? Are you the product of what happened, or of what you remember happening? If your past can be rewritten in the name of power, or peace, or pride, then identity isn't fixed. It's a performance, a costume stitched from the fabric of convenient memory. And Machiavelli would nod, because for him, the appearance of virtue was more useful than virtue itself. The appearance of truth more powerful than the truth. So here's the real question. What happens when you know this? When you become aware that your memories are dressed for an audience? Do you dig for the raw truth and risk collapse? Or do you choose the beautiful lie? Because the truth is not comforting. It's destabilizing. Disorienting. It asks you to look at the mirror and admit, I may not be who I think I am. And once you admit that, you can never go back. You've seen the machinery behind the curtain. You've seen how the self is constructed, not from facts, but from necessity. Machiavelli says, good. Now you are ready for power. But what he doesn't say, what he may not even care about, is what it costs to live without illusions. Because once memory becomes a weapon, the war is inside your own head. You want to believe your brain is a camera. Click, snapshot, memory, stored exactly as it was, ready to be retrieved when needed, unchanged by time, immune to distortion. But neuroscience has no patience for this comforting myth. Your brain is not a camera. It's a storyteller, a liar, a dreamer, a defense attorney, and a saboteur. And memory? It isn't a file in a cabinet. It's a living scene rebuilt from scratch every time you remember it. Which means this: every time you recall a moment, you rewrite it. The first crack in the illusion came in the 1970s, when psychologist Elizabeth Loftus began exposing how disturbingly easy it was to manipulate memory. In one study, participants watched a video of a car crash. When asked, how fast were the cars going when they hit each other, they gave moderate estimates, but changed just one word. Hit becomes smashed. And suddenly, the cars were going faster, and people remembered seeing broken glass that wasn't there. One word, one suggestion, and the mind conjures a false detail with absolute confidence. This is how fragile your memory is, but it gets worse. In other experiments, people remembered being lost in a mall as a child, complete with smells, emotions, and a full narrative, after simply being told it had happened. It never had, yet the emotional conviction was real. Your mind doesn't just edit the past, it can fabricate it whole cloth. What does this mean? It means that memory is not a fact you retrieve. It's a performance you believe. Each time you recall, the memory is reconstructed using bits of truth, scraps of inference, and the paintbrush of the present. You fill in blanks, reframe villains, soften your own flaws, and you don't know you're doing it. The falsehood feels identical to the truth. Think about that. Your emotional certainty, your "I know this happened," means nothing. Because the memory system evolved for survival, not for accuracy. For story, not for evidence. Here's the paradox. The more often you remember something, the less accurate it becomes. You're not retrieving the original moment. You're retrieving your last version of the story. And that version may already be corrupted. It's like making a photocopy of a photocopy. With each iteration, the truth blurs, but your trust in it only grows. And that's the tragedy. Because once you realize your memory is untrustworthy, you start to doubt everything. Your regrets, your victories, your guilt, your forgiveness. Did you really mean the thing you said? Or have you rewritten your intentions to sleep better? Did someone truly hurt you the way you remember? Or is your version shaped by anger, distance, and the need to be right? Memory doesn't care. It just adapts. The brain does this because it must. You're not built to carry every detail, every wound, every contradiction. You're built to move forward. So memory becomes a functional lie, a curated archive, a fable in your own voice. But that curation has consequences. When memory can't be trusted, justice becomes impossible. Accountability becomes slippery, and the self, so carefully constructed from remembered moments, becomes a house of cards. This isn't just a psychological issue. It's philosophical, ontological. If you can't remember the truth, how do you define who you are? Are you the sum of your actions or of your stories? And if those stories are fiction, what is the self? You are not a historian of your life. You are its unreliable narrator. And the brain, like Machiavelli, doesn't care about truth. It cares about what works. You are not just the victim of false memory. You are its architect. The enemy isn't only external. Suggestions from others, media distortion, systemic gaslighting. The most insidious manipulator of memory is the voice in your own head. The one that tells you a version of the past that lets you remain intact, blameless, worthy. Memory isn't just corrupted, it's curated. Your mind performs a subtle, ongoing campaign of internal propaganda. Not with posters or slogans, but with selective silence, with rationalizations, with careful edits to your timeline. You don't remember everything. For sure, you remember what you need to justify who you are. Let's say you failed someone, hurt them. You knew it then, but over the years, the memory softens. You forget the worst part, the tears, the excuses. You replace it with context. I was overwhelmed. I didn't mean it. They weren't perfect either. You don't remember what you did. You remember why you think it was forgivable. Now stretch that across every relationship, every mistake, every shame. You'll see the pattern. Your mind doesn't seek to preserve the truth. It seeks to preserve dignity. The result? A past that flatters you. And you believe it, not because you're a liar, but because you're human. There's a term for this: motivated forgetting. It's when your subconscious edits out memories that threaten your self-image. It doesn't just hide facts. It buries them so deep they feel like they never existed. It's not deception. It's protection. And it's why you don't remember that you were the cruel one. Why you forget the times you cheated or minimized someone's pain. It's why you remember the moments when you were broken, but not when you did the breaking. Because to remember accurately would mean to face yourself without armor. And most people can't survive that. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once said, "Memory says, I did that. Pride replies, I could not have done that." Eventually, memory yields. Machiavelli would agree, but without the poetry. He'd say, this is how power maintains itself. Not just over others, but over the self. You are both the tyrant and the citizen in your mind. You rule yourself through narrative, through the stories that make your life coherent, your actions reasonable, your flaws survivable. And like all propaganda, it works best when you don't know it's happening. But here's the twist. You need this propaganda to function. Without it, you'd collapse under the weight of contradiction. Every lie you've told, every betrayal you've committed, every time you acted out of fear, cowardice, or malice, if remembered in perfect clarity, would undo you. So your brain erases the evidence, like a regime airbrushing dissenters out of photographs. And yet, beneath the surface, the truth lingers. In guilt that arrives without reason. In dreams that replay a scene you've consciously forgotten. In the subtle tension between who you say you are and what your body remembers you did. Because even if your mind forgets, your nervous system doesn't. And this raises a terrifying question. If your memory is propaganda, and your identity is built on memory, then who are you? Really? Are you the story you tell yourself? Or the one you've silenced? When you remember your life, are you looking into a mirror or reading a manifesto? You may think you know yourself, but perhaps you only know your favorite version. You sit across from someone you love. They say, that's not how it happened. You feel the blood rise, the indignation. Of course it is. You were there. You remember. But they remember something else. Something you can't reconcile. Both of you believe your versions. Both of you are certain. Now ask yourself, if two people can remember the same moment and walk away with opposite truths, who's right? Worse, what if neither of you are? This isn't just a psychological problem anymore. This is an ethical crisis because morality, integrity, justice, all the pillars of a meaningful life, depend on one fragile foundation, the assumption that your memory reflects what actually happened. How can you hold yourself accountable for something you can't remember correctly? How can you ask forgiveness for a harm you've edited out? How can you grow, change, or repent if the past keeps shifting underneath your feet? Without reliable memory, morality becomes a house without walls. You wander its corridors, unsure which room holds the truth and which is a projection of need or fear. Think of war criminals who lived ordinary lives afterward. Fathers, husbands, neighbors, men who committed atrocities and then forgot or claimed to. Were they lying? Possibly. But sometimes the lie is deeper. They remembered a version of the past where they were just following orders, where they were helpless, where they never heard the screams. Their minds protected them, sanitized them, made them whole enough to function. But if their memories aren't real, is there remorse? And if your own memories are curated, is your guilt authentic or performative? Let's come closer to home. Let's say you apologized to someone years ago. You remember it vividly. The call, the voice crackling over the line, the trembling in your gut. You made it right. Except you find out they never got the call. You never apologized. Maybe you meant to. Maybe you rehearsed it so many times it became a memory. But it didn't happen. You believed it did. You forgave yourself based on a fiction. Does your forgiveness still count? Does your redemption still hold? Now the ground shakes beneath your feet. Because if morality depends on memory, and memory is untrustworthy, then ethical selfhood becomes a paradox. You are responsible for actions you may not remember. You are judged by intentions you may have misremembered. You are shaped by events that may never have occurred the way you recall them. What then is the nature of conscience? Is it tied to what truly happened or to what you believe happened? And if it's the latter, then can any ethical act be trusted? Philosopher Soren Kierkegaard once said, "Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards." But what if the past you're trying to understand is false? Then you're walking forward with a blindfold stitched from illusions, and yet you must walk. So what do? You choose. You either cling to the fiction that your memories are pure and true, risking hypocrisy, or you live in the awareness that your inner narrative is flawed and act as if you are still responsible anyway. Machiavelli would scoff. He'd say, "Use what serves you. Let others worry about truth." But what if you care about truth? What if you want to be not just effective, but good? Then you face the abyss. You live ethically, not because your memory guarantees it, but in spite of the fact that it doesn't. That is integrity. Not the certainty of the past, but the courage to act rightly even when the past cannot be fully trusted. Picture this. You're in a room you don't recognize. Someone walks in, face familiar, name just out of reach. They hand you a journal. "It's yours," they say. You open it. Page after page, written in your handwriting, are confessions. Moments you forgot, people you hurt, lies you told. The story doesn't match the life you remember living. You want to scream, to deny, but the ink is yours. So which version is real? This is the final betrayal. Not from a lover, not from an enemy, but from the one thing that was supposed to be yours, your memory. It was never neutral, never objective. It filtered, shaped, performed. It told you what you needed to hear. It shielded you from truth when truth was unbearable. And in doing so, it kept you alive, but not necessarily honest. Machiavelli understood this with chilling clarity. not in the clinical way of scientists, but in the cold language of power. Truth is a liability unless it serves you. The beautiful lie? That's what wins hearts. That's what maintains peace. That's what keeps the mirror from cracking. And memory, more than any speech, sword, or symbol, is the most elegant lie of all, because it doesn't shout. It whispers. It doesn't contradict you. It becomes you. So now, you stand at a crossroads. Will you cling to the stories that flatter you? Or will you live with the suspicion that the most precious parts of your past may be fictions? There is no clear answer. Only the unsettling knowledge that your memory is not your witness, it is your alibi. And the question that remains, if you can't trust your memory, who are you really?